Welcome to a special episode in conjunction with SAIL, the Swansea University Alumni magazine. The theme of the 2024 issue is culture, celebrating the wide array of talent which has passed through the university's doors over the years. So join me, Jon Doyle, as I chat to some of those who've gone on to find success, find out what their path to publication looked like, and the role Swansea played in shaping the journey of their careers. Today I'm speaking to illustrator and author James Norbury, best known for his recent book, Big Panda Tiny Dragon. A work which draws upon the empathetic wisdom of Buddhist philosophy and spirituality to tell the story of two friends, that's Big Panda and Tiny Dragon, as they journey together through the seasons of the year. The book is the product of a whole host of lived experience, both positive and negative, not to mention a lifetime of artistic practice, which all too often failed to receive the recognition it deserved. But as I spoke with James about these ups and downs, and how they came to inform the characters of his book, it became clear to me that what might have seemed like setbacks at the time were often key to moving forward. I started by asking about an earlier chapter of his life, when James studied zoology at Swansea University, a time which also turned out to be something of a happy accident.
Basically, I wanted to be a park ranger. And my school, basically, when you do the careers advice and all that sort of thing, that's what they directed me towards. So they told me that's what I should go and do and everything, because park rangers and animals and zoology, which actually didn't really turn out to be correct at all, because that's really, zoology's got nothing to do with being a park ranger, which I found out kind of to my dismay, really. So yeah, I was completely misqualified. So yeah, it was sort of unfortunate in a way. And the reason that I chose Swansea, I got a couple of offers, I think, but Swansea seemed like all around the sort of nicest choice by the sea, and it had a good reputation. My sister went here as well, so before me.
So running alongside this is your illustration and writing. So do you want to maybe speak a little bit about where that fits into the story?
Illustration. My father was an artist, so I sort of grew up in that sort of environment. So I've done drawing since I was small. Not really had any formal training, but I've always liked illustration. I went off to do, I did a few other things. I've never really worked for anyone. I've always, other than a couple of sort of Saturday job type things, I've always been quite determined to work for myself. So I tried to be an artist for a long time and a writer for a long time, but I was never very successful because I'm very poor at marketing. So I'm not really inclined that way towards the business side of things. So I've always been a very unsuccessful artist and very unsuccessful writer until I did the Panda and the Dragon related things and put them on Instagram, and then things succeeded eventually.
Yeah, do you want to speak about that a little bit more? So, give us an idea of how many sort of projects maybe you've been working on before the big one.
Oh, I've probably written probably about 5 or 6 finished novels, and I don't know, probably another 20 half novels. I've written children's books, quite a few children's books, but I would send a lot of these books to agents, and they all just told me to. Well, most of them don't even reply. So yeah, I didn't have much luck with that. I did a lot of painting, and drawing. Tried to sell it off my website or on eBay or things like that, but very, very limited success. I think it's my own fault, because I sort of expected the work to sell itself. I thought, I've drawn a great picture, someone will want to buy it.
Yeah.
Even though it's in my drawer and I've not told anyone about it, So that's my own silly fault, really. I did run kennels for a while,
okay.
Just a boarding kennel when I lived in Ireland, because after not being able to be a park ranger and that kind of thing, I thought, well, I do want to work with animals still. So I set up a boarding kennel for about 2 years, which was nice, but not quite for me. Eventually, I sort of well, a few years ago actually, I'd had enough really because I'd spent so long writing and drawing and getting absolutely nowhere. I decided to give up, and I thought I would make flat pack furniture.
Okay.
You can build it for other people.
Hmm.
You get an app or something, and they'll give you a beep, and you go off to their house, build their flat pack, and they give you 50 quid.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
I thought I could do that. It's sort of like Lego for
Yeah,
grown-ups.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I didn't
enjoy
know you
that.
could do that. That sounds useful.
Yeah, I thought I'd like that. It's nice and practical, and you know what you're doing. It's not like art and drawing, which is kind of ambiguous. You never know if you've kind of really got it right or
Yeah, it's never finished, is it? It's just
no, exactly. It's never finished, and it's so open to interpretation. Whereas building a cupboard, you can do that perfectly and get it right.
so after all that struggles to find your audience, you stumbled upon the idea of Big Panda and Tiny Dragon. You started putting it on Instagram, did you say? And it kind of took off from there.
Yeah, basically, I used to volunteer with Samaritans uh,
Hmm.
on the phones. I talked to lots of people, and I also studied Buddhism and sort of spirituality for many, many years. And when I was talking to the people on the phones, I thought there's a lot of ideas that would really help you, but we're not allowed to advise people at Samaritans. You can't sort of give them, tell them to go and try this. So I thought, well, maybe there's another way I could get this useful information across to people. So I was going to start like a little group, like a weekly group or something like that, but it wouldn't reach many people. And I'm not really terribly outgoing in that respect. And then COVID, it was at the start of COVID, so I couldn't do it anyway. So I thought I'd draw pictures instead to try and put the same messages across.
Hmm.
I make them single images so that they were easy to digest and see and share and put them on Instagram. And yeah, they just got very popular very quickly. And then I got to I self-published a little book of the pictures, and I sold so many of those that I didn't have time to do anything else. So I didn't have time to do any drawing or anything anymore. So I wrote to an agent and see if they were interested, and they were. So yeah.
It's sort of a catch-22. You wait for success for so long, and then it comes along and it kind of stops you from doing the work in the first place. Then
Yeah. It's ironic actually because that was pretty much the last project I decided to do before I give up art. I thought I'm not going to do it anymore, but I will do this project. And it was weird because it was one project I did with no thought of return. All my projects have been for commercial reasons, really, to try and make money. But this one, I thought, well, I won't make money from this because I just give it away. Um, and oddly enough, it turned out to be the one that was actually able to pay me properly.
were you surprised by how successful it was, and why do you think those characters in particular were the ones which resonated?
I don't know why I think the characters accidentally resonated. I just drew them because they thought they were fun. I didn't really artistically, they contrast well. There's a big fluffy thing and then a small scrawny thing. But I think they're contrasting personalities. They're supposed to be they are like the two halves of my brain talking to each other, if you like. So the little dragon is like the insecure, like but curious and childlike sort of side, and the panda's the sort of wise, more you know, quiet, dependable, and enlightened side of it, I think, which I think we all have, but I do think we've kind of lost the ability to listen to it, really. We're much more focused on the other side of it, the more now what's going on, or looking around, like the content obsessed side of it, fortunately.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask, so you mentioned some of the spiritual stuff which is underpinning the work. It's an accessible book and easily kind of approachable with the illustration especially, but there's also lots going on beneath the surface in terms of philosophical, existential stuff. Um, did you approach it with any sort of intention in terms of the balance, like who you wanted it to be available for, or was it just writing what was important to you at the time and it came out.
Yeah, it was really just a reflection of myself, really. So, because I kind of think you have to be sincere in
Yeah,
these
yeah,
things.
sure.
So you can't. I don't feel anyway that it's appropriate to sort of talk about these sorts of things which you have no experience of personally. So I would just talk about the pictures about my own experiences. So I would just take how I feel at the time.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like anxious about something, say I felt anxious about an interview, and I would sort of think, well, why do I feel that way? What is the problem that's bothering me? And maybe say the worst thing is that I say something stupid or I look stupid or whatever. And I think, well, that's not really a great deal of problem with that, is there? There's no harm looking stupid for 2 minutes. So then that would be, oh, I feel better now. So then I would try and make that into a picture, that the problem and the solution that I come up with, I would then try and turn into a picture. And I found out that all the things that I have issues with, it seems that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people with those same issues, that we're not, unique in our problems.
It's interesting how it kind of applies across the age ranges because it's not a children's book per se, but children could definitely read it.
Yeah, yeah. So that was your the question of the target person. Yeah, it was about me, but it was for adults, really.
Hmm.
I wrote it for adults, but it's been incredibly successful for children. In some countries, it's actually marketed as a children's book.
Okay.
I've been to schools and spoken with classes who are doing projects all based around the book and stuff, and that's amazing. And they get it. Sometimes they get it more than the grown-ups,
Yeah.
which is like quite amazing to see. Little 12-year-old girl with this like staggering level of insight that I hadn't seen before, and
Hmm.
oh wow, that's really amazing.
Yeah. It must be a rewarding experience too.
Yeah, it is really, because I like to think that the ideas contained in the book are all, if you took them on board, that you would be a more peaceful, gentle, happy person. Maybe society would be a more gentle, peaceful place. And so children taking on these ideas is really good, because if it was widespread, it could actually help to make our society a bit more gentle and peaceful.
One thing I wanted to touch upon, you mentioned the influence of Japanese art a minute ago. Can you speak a little bit about your artistic influences? Because I saw on your website you also draw different stuff as well, so maybe some cyberpunk sort of things and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I used to draw a lot of cyberpunk stuff. I used to do a lot of game design, like
Okay.
not like board game and sort of tabletop type games, not really, sadly. Um, and so I mainly in the cyberpunk genre. So I used to do a lot of cyberpunk illustration and stuff. I really enjoy that. I still do. I also used to do a lot of sort of cartoony art, a lot of dystopian sort of art. I always enjoyed. I did do abstract work as well, because I enjoy that. Um, do a lot of more classic illustrative work. I like doing manga, but more recently the panda and the stuff in the books that I do, that's sort of influenced quite a lot by ukiyo-e style, which is, Japanese wood block printing,
Hmm. Hmm.
that I really, really like. Chinese watercolor, traditional Chinese watercolor, brush painting, or ink painting, I suppose, rather than watercolor. I like traditional illustration, like Arthur Rackham,
Okay.
uh, him like pen and ink illustration, and also sort of alternative manga stuff. There's a guy called Tsutomu Nihei who did a series called Blame.
Hmm.
It's a series of manga, which is all the architecture based. I've always loved drawing architecture.
Okay.
So the book I'm doing at the moment has a lot of architecture in, because I haven't got to really do architecture in the previous books.
You kind of choose what books you're going to work on by what you want to draw. Because obviously this is it's idea based, but also, you came across the characters and then that kind of took you. So how do you decide like what you're going to work on next?
No, it's more based on the idea. So I would have the idea for the book first, but then I can um, push that idea into really any world that I wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, so if I suddenly had an urge to do mines, I wanted to draw lots of mines, for example, I would set the book in a mine,
Yeah.
which would be weird, but I could do that. So yeah, basically, because I have to draw like I don't know 150 drawings in a similar environment, I want to pick something ideally that I haven't done too much before,
Mm-hmm.
so to avoid excessive repetition.
And the experience of, so I guess lots of authors would have an illustrator to go with them, and you kind of have to have that conversation. But you do it all yourself, and you have more
Yeah.
control than most people. Is that a blessing or a curse?
No, that's fantastic. Because I don't have to compromise. I only have to compromise in the sense that I'm not necessarily skillful enough to draw exactly what I want, but I
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
any artist will get that generally, unless they're incredible. But you don't always get to draw. Your picture doesn't always come out quite like you want it to. But no, I really like it because yeah, basically I don't have to negotiate with people or yeah, there's no compromise involved. And for the most part, I have a vision in my head of what I want this thing to look like. And then generally speaking, I do a pretty good job of creating it. So I get to really fine tune the world. That's sort of the thing I
hmm
like a lot is world building, if you like. And by doing the writing and the illustration, you get much more control over how that world manifests.
definitely. And I guess it comes back to that idea of wanting to work for yourself as well. It's just having that,
Yeah,
that control over things, and also it allows you to have. So I think the sincerity of this book is what makes it so effective. And I think having to communicate those ideas of what you need it to look like to somebody else, maybe something we get lost in translation.
yeah. There's a real, sometimes very subtle things, like just the shape of an eye or something which conveys like a certain level of compassion or excitement or something. Very hard to get across to another artist and get them to draw it just like you imagine it.
Just wanted to turn back towards zoology a little bit. There's definite sort of appreciation for the natural world running through this book, and appreciation for life in general in all its guises. Is that something which even predates your interest in Buddhism and spirituality?
Yeah, it's been pretty much my favorite thing since I was tiny, was nature and animals. As soon as I sort of became cognizant of the way the world worked, I switched to being vegetarian, then vegan. I know it's not a perfect philosophy, but it's one of the best things you can do, I think, to help, look after animals and plants and nature and things. I think it's amazing. I don't think anything else is as special and as incredible to look at. Even a leaf, you pick up a leaf and really look at it. It's miraculous.
It's kind of a chicken and egg situation. The spiritual side of things is being more mindful and being aware of things, but also I kind of felt like maybe you were tuned to those ideas rather than those ideas shaping you. If that makes
No, I tend to spirituality because from basically being I don't know what you call it, like having psychological issues, like depression or anxiety or those sorts of things that, many people suffer from. And yeah, I tend to be quite into trying to fix things myself. So I didn't want
sense.
to take tablets or go and see people or things like that, really. So I explored, other routes like, spirituality, Buddhism, and so on, in order to try and find ways to, restore your mental health. I found personally that if you apply it properly and diligently, it's extremely successful. And so I wanted to, a lot of people haven't got the time or the inclination, or maybe they don't even know about it. So they wouldn't think to look at these sources. They would instead think to go to the doctor and the doctor prescribes them something. But there are other paths, and I just wanted to sort of help share these paths with people, not ram them down their throats, just let them know they're there and that they're interesting.
It's almost like providing like a way to put it into language in a different way or a different way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
Just like a framework you can turn to if you're that way inclined.
I did it in such a way because I don't think, if you get a book on Buddhism or whatever and you hand it to someone and go, read that, that'll help you. Like, that's not,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe it will, maybe it won't, maybe they won't read it, maybe you just don't know. Whereas you show them a single picture like that, they take it in 5 seconds. And if they might go, ooh, That's interesting. There's something there, maybe, I think. And then that might inspire them to go off and find out a little bit more.
This kind of leads me into nicely into so the theme of the magazine is culture in all
Hmm.
its kind of definitions. And the motto of the university is technical skill is bereft without culture. So there's lots of stuff going on within society at the moment in terms of what we value, what topics at university people should be studying, and like how much creativity, I guess, is valued over productivity and efficiency and all
Yeah.
those kind of things. So I was just kind of interested in getting your opinion on why art is so important in this world, which doesn't seem to value it
Not as
all the
much as
time.
it should. No, it is beautiful. I think if you take the extreme example, if you lived in a city utterly bereft of beauty, like they cut all the trees down and took away all the wrought iron railings and replaced them with, steel railings and took away the beautiful houses and replaced them with concrete blocks, I think you very quickly notice a drop in people's well-being, even if everything was physically provided for. I think the lack of aesthetic beauty would very quickly, you feel less optimistic than if you're walking around a sunny, beautiful part of a city. So just in that, you can see that your surroundings have a tangible effect on you, which is why we make our homes nice if we can, things like that. And that's basically art in another form.
I guess it just makes life worth worth living. It makes going to work worth it, so you can have something to do
Yeah,
the other side,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so just in conclusion, I'm not sure how much you're allowed to speak about this, but I understand you've been hard at work on the next book. Are you allowed to?
Yeah, I guess little bits. I don't tend to get told how much I can share, but it's called Following the Moon. That's public knowledge. Yeah, it centers around a wolf and a puppy. Um, but that's probably yeah.
That's enough of a teaser.
It's a storybook, as it were. Bit like the last two books I wrote. And but it's different and interesting, and I think personally I think it's quite a brave book to write. It's because it's very different. It
Okay.
steps outside what maybe typical frameworks for books. So I think it's quite exciting.
And in terms of coming up with those ideas, do you have conversations with your agent now, or do you still have sort of complete control over where you go
Um,
next? Has the experience been different from when you maybe
it's
started?
more the publisher that your agent tends to be very encouraging. Well, my agent anyway. He's very encouraging with all my ideas. He's very positive. But it's whether the publisher likes the idea that's perhaps more important. Um, but yeah, the I think that the publisher has faith in me, which is very a lovely situation to be in, and I have faith in them. So when I present them with the original ideas, they do say, "That's a lovely idea. Have you thought about maybe changing these elements of it?" And together we work together to come up with an ideal book rather than I have a tendency to go off on a vendor and create some weird thing that maybe one would want to read.
Yeah.
So they help me to shape things into something that's a more exciting project because nobody wants to, well, very few people want to create art that nobody sees and nobody likes.
And last question. So you explained that you went through years of toiling away with little success. So if you could say one thing to that younger self, or maybe to a different artist who is currently in that position, do you have any wisdom you would share?
Yeah, I did think about this, and I think the thing I would so I wouldn't go back and change things, or I wouldn't be where I am. And so, if I told myself to go back and don't waste time on that stupid project, I think that's all these things are necessary to all the failures and the all that they're an important part of the process. But what I would say is that something I put into a few of my books because I think it's super important is to try and perceive that when things go wrong, there's often something really good hidden within it. Um,
Mhm.
and that if like I've had several situations where things seem to have become really bad and I'm sort of despair. But actually, that situation turned out to be really beneficial. You can't see that at the time when the bad thing's happening. But I think personally that if you can bear in mind that there's something good may come out of this, it has the ability to soften the blow of the bad experience. And I know with things like people dying and stuff, that's very difficult to see that. I appreciate that. But with your more minor things like, for example, I used to live on a boat, and I didn't check the boat out before I bought it because I'm too impulsive. So I bought this boat, and then when I went to sell it, apparently it was rotten, and the bottom needed replacing. And I lost almost all the money I had in the world, but that sort of took me on that path, led me to creating the Panda books in the end. So who's to say that was a bad thing, If I'd have known that at the time, I would have celebrated it. So,
Yeah.
I think that's super important to try and see the benefits in the bad times. Hard to do, but it's a good thing to cultivate if you can.
It's funny how some of those ideas kind of creep into the book, the idea of maybe wandering in what seems like the wrong direction or a dead end, but then it turns out to be just another part of the journey, and it's not that straight line.
Exactly. Yeah. How many times do you get lost and actually find something interesting at the end of it? So yeah, it is super important, I think, for me,